Sup everyone, I'm your female otaku and I'm here to review the latest Studio Ghibli film in 6 years, Earwig and the Witch. Earwig and the Witch is based off of a novel from the same author as Howl's Moving Castle and was directed by Goro Miyazaki, aka Hayao Miyazaki's son and the director of From Up on Poppy Hill and Tales of Earthsea. This is the first Studio Ghibli film ever to be in 3D, CG, whatever you want to call this, but there is no 2D animation except for a little bit in the intro. Now I'm not gonna lie, I was like you and I thought that having Studio Ghibli switch to 3D animation was an absolute disgrace and was gonna be ugly and make the entire film terrible. That is not the case. The film could have been told in 2D, sure, but it doesn't destroy the whole aspect of the film with it being in 3D animation. And the animation isn't choppy either. Everything is fluid, and once again, as always, the background, I swear, Studio Ghibli and their sceneries, man, each and every single one could just be its own painting or photograph and just hang that shit up in a museum. That's how I knew animation-wise, things were gonna be fine. One of the first opening shots is this beautiful scenery, classic Ghibli style with lovely greenery and perfect lighting. However, just because the animation doesn't make the film dip doesn't mean that the film doesn't dip at all. But we'll get to that in just a second. Earwig and the Witch is about Earwig, or for most of the film, she actually goes by Erica Wig. Kinda doesn't know that her real name is Earwig. We'll touch upon that again later. She thrives over at her orphanage. She rules it. She's able to get everything that she wants from the kitchen staff or her friends or even the person who owns the orphanage. Everything goes her way. And she makes sure to keep it that way by not getting adopted. Every single time someone comes and tries to adopt her, she convinces her friend Custard to make this gross face to ward off any potential parents. But one day, a witch and a warlock come in and decide to adopt Erica. Or, I guess, Earwig. Doesn't matter what I call her. But they didn't adopt her to become one happy witch family. They just need another set of hands when it comes to making potions. And that's really it for the film, which is kind of odd because you expect there to be more. That's where the film dips. Again, it's absolutely not a bad film, and I didn't even think it was a boring film either. But when the film ends, it ends so abruptly because that's when the plot is just starting to kick off. The majority of the film is just Earwig trying to get things to go her way again over at this new house that she's living at, and things aren't going her way, and she's now has to do chores and make potions and stuff and listen to her elders. Like, that's really it, which is typically a concept that you would see in like a TV series. You know, you have the troubled kid who's, you know, just being their annoying little prankster selves, and then from each episode they do something else and then they get punished, you know, like this is a typical thing you would see in a children's show, not really in a movie. Now, since this is a movie, you expect for a lesson to be told, and there isn't. It's like, you think this is a kid's movie, but since there's no lesson to be told, it's like, is it really a kid's film? This is just encouraging bad behavior. What do I know? I'm not a parent. I still had fun with the film nonetheless. But still, when it comes to bratty kids getting their way, you can't help but feel kind of annoyed. There is this subplot that I really wish we got to see more of, which is, again, it really hurts the film that it ended so abruptly because it was just starting to kick off with that subplot, and that is Earwig's mother. In the beginning of the film, you see Earwig's mother trying to chase off these witches, and then she drops off her daughter, Earwig, over at the orphanage, and she says that she'll be back, she has to face off against the 12 witches, and this could take some time. Okay, now what? We never go back with that. Not at all. And I'm just like, why? Which reminds me, there's another subplot in the film about this band that her mother used to be in. And that was really interesting too, seeing the flashbacks to when they were all in the band. The music, my God, guys, the music is so good. Not just the music that the band plays, but also the overall soundtrack of the film. It can get jazzy sometimes, very atmospheric. My friends and I all enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm not surprised if I end up going back and listening to the soundtrack, which I might do after this video. But yeah, all this other stuff, specifically with Earwig's mom, just ends. It just stops when we were just getting to it. I don't know how well of an adaptation Earwig and the Witch is to the book. Maybe it adapted the book perfectly, and that is probably the issue. Again, I don't know, I didn't read the book, but if it did adapt the book perfectly, I feel like that the film should have shortened the time with Earwig trying to get her way over at her new home and making potions. That should have been shortened immensely, and then we can continue on with the plot when it comes to her discovering her mother and her mother's past. Like that was definitely the more interesting part of the film. And they set it up in the beginning of the film too. The mom says that she'll be back, so I don't know, maybe they're planning on making a sequel. Ghibli isn't really known for making sequels. They never really made a sequel before. The Cat Returns does not count. Maybe they'll start with this one. Hey, they are trying new things after all. Overall, Earwig and the Witch is not a bad film. The animation is just fine and the soundtrack is to die for. There's just a lot more filler in between than I would have expected, and when the story is finally starting to kick off, it just ends abruptly. So hey, up to you. I still think that it's an okay watch. You definitely don't have to see it right away, but I think it's worth your time, at least a little bit. Have you seen Earwig and the Witch? What are your thoughts on it? I want to give a very special shout out to Sarah Hogan for donating to my Patreon. If you'd like a very special shout out in the next video, stream, or what have you, then please click on the Patreon link in the description to donate, as well as links to my social media. I'm your female otaku. Sayonara.